So welcome to another episode of In Between Homes. Today I'm welcoming Romane. Hi Romane.
Hello. Hi, Lucy. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for accepting this invitation. My first question to you would be, where is home for you?
Oh, we can start talking about this for 1 hour, I think. It's very cliche to say this, but since I'm very young, I don't think I'm actually beating my record right now. I've lived 5 years in Sydney, but I've never lived before that more than 4 years somewhere. So I think I've always associated home where the heart is of it, like where my family or my partner or my friends are. So I would say, like, right now, I would feel like home is in Sydney, Australia. But I also find home going visiting my friends in the UK. I find home going back to Hong Kong sometimes. So I will give you a simple answer. I'll say right now it's in Sydney, Australia.
Yes. Yeah, your whole life has been going from homes to another homes around the world, and I love this part of you. Like it's like, yeah, I live everywhere. I'm a citizen of the world. I don't
Yeah.
know if this world resonates with you, but
Yes, definitely. Well, people always ask me because I'm French originally, but I moved from the age of 5. So people always ask me, "Oh, where do you identify yourself to?" I'm like, obviously, I have a strong French heritage, and I went to French international school up to high school. But, like, for instance, I've never worked in French. Then from uni, I started going to English speaking unis. So I've kind of, even language wise, I feel like I'm not fluent in one language. I'm always trying to find my words in both languages. So yeah, my passport is French, maybe Australian soon, who knows, but yeah, I will say half French, half international.
I love that. And our conversation most of the time are half in English, half in
Yes,
French, because we
Franglish is my
kind of
favorite
complete
language. Yes.
complete the sentence. Okay,
Yeah.
now if we look back, who was Roman 10 years ago? How was your life back in 2014?
Oh my god. So 10 years ago, I think it was like when I moved from Hong Kong. So I was in high school in Hong Kong and I moved to the UK to study by myself. So I was turned 18 and I moved to the UK to study by myself, far away from my parents. Already that some people were like, "How? Like, you were so young. You just My parents were living in Hong Kong. I moved to the UK, so that was like so far away." I think honestly, like, when I remember myself at that time, I kind of remember it fondly. Like, I feel like I was really free, and I wasn't scared to take risk. I think I was pretty bold in the choices I've made. Almost like I feel like sometimes more bold than now. Because I feel like, you had more freedom at that time. You're not like working full time, you're at uni, you can sort of do a bit everything you want. You don't have that much responsibilities just yet. So it was a time where I think, experimented in like different type of friendships or people I was around to. This is when I learned how to speak really good English as well, because I was living with Americans. My best friend was American. She's an artist. We're in London, walking around the streets of London, being two international kids trying to learn how the city worked. And it's a pretty tough city as well, like, especially as a student, it's pretty expensive. So you build really strong relationship because it is a tough city to live in. And so I think I went into very different experiences and adventures there that really shaped me into who I am today and my independent type of character as well, because you have to sort of be an adult very quickly, and learn how to be self sufficient as well in a city like so far away from your family or where you grew up. So Yeah, it was, definitely I don't know if I would live in London again, but, I definitely remember it as a tough, but, like, a fun as well time in my life, a very free time in my life.
Mm.
Yeah.
And when you say you have learned how to become self-sufficient, what did you do exactly? Do you remember some example you can give us?
Yeah, like, I think, when you leave, like, your I've always been quite autonomous on my own, like, I've never really my parents didn't really help me do my homework or whatever. I would sort of do my own thing since I'm little. But I think, when you live at your parents, they're sort of like raising you, right? They're raising you to be someone they want they want you to be, depending on how strict they are. Mine were pretty strict. Um, but when you're by yourself, you have to raise yourself again on who you want to be, not someone else, right? So you're learning like, okay, like simple things like, what do I eat? Like, when you're at your parents, you are fed specific type of food. Maybe it's healthy, maybe it's unhealthy. But you have that structure. When you're alone, you can decide to eat whatever. You can sleep at whatever time. You can go and hang out with whoever until whatever time. And you have to learn yourself, okay, this is why I should be doing this, and this is why I shouldn't. So you're sort of like left to your own learnings again,
Mm.
and trying to figure out, okay, that's what an adult feels like. I mean, you're not completely adult, I will say, because you still, I was lucky to still have a bit of my parents' support, like helping paying for my rent and stuff because I was studying. I still worked on the side, but it would be hard to. I know some kids have to do that, but I still had some help, but it was like, okay, I'm learning how to know myself on my own and without someone guiding every steps that I have to make, basically. And that definitely like was a learning. I think I got into different situations where I was like, okay, this is great that I'm experimenting this, but it's great that um, I'm doing this now and I learn from it and I'm not going to do that mistake again. So you learn on your own, which is the biggest learning, I think. I've always been like that. I like to learn from my own mistake. I usually don't really like when people tell me what to do.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. Yeah, I guess it's just try and error, you know. It's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
trying, I make a mistake and learn about something about myself, my
Yeah.
needs. Okay, maybe I need to sleep earlier because if not, I cannot go to work or attend uni and all those stuff. So
Yeah.
you just when you don't have choices anymore, then you are on your own. It's like, okay, I need to figure this out by myself, and then it's how we learn, we experience by experiencing it. Okay,
Yeah.
and 10 years later, you are here today. You are in Sydney. How was this whole journey for you? Those 10 years.
So there was a few pit stops. So obviously, like, so after uni, I spent 4 years in London, and then after uni, I moved back to Hong Kong, where I did my high school and started my career. So I was working there in comms and PR for a year. But then I knew ultimately that I would have to do a master degree as well because my parents are French and you cannot avoid the master degree when you're French. You have to do it. So I knew that after that year I had to like work and do a master degree. I did not want to stop working because I was like, this is going to stop my career. I've already worked for a bit. I had done multiple internships. So I was like, I just got to keep evolving from now. And then that sort of led me to Australia. My parents were moving from Hong Kong, and I thought, okay, well, this could be like an opportunity to explore something new. I knew I didn't want to go back to the UK or Europe, and Australia was something I completely new. I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I went there first year, right before COVID, found a job, did started my master degree at the same time. And then I honestly didn't think I would stay because actually the first year in Australia was really hard for me. Big culture shock compared to Hong Kong, where Hong Kong was a very small social circle. Like it was very social, a lot of expats, like traveling, wanting to make friends. So it's super social. Whereas Australia, specifically Sydney, I will say, Melbourne's a bit different. but people, they grew up together since they're from like middle school. So they have their groups. They're less willing to socialize or make new friends. They all live, Sydney is a huge city, so they live in different neighborhoods, and they sort of have that neighborhood life. So it's like they're less spontaneous in their plan. There's not really a nightlife. So it was really hard for me because I was like, "Oh my god, it's like it's very slow here compared to Hong Kong." So I didn't think I would stay, and then I met my now husband, that first year right before COVID. And then when I met him, I think things changed. This is when I started working. I started making more friends. Then COVID happened, but it was during the time we got to know each other. So really, COVID wasn't that bad for us. And then, yeah, and then after that, I guess I had I built a home. I felt like I had a home here and a place here. And this is how I ended up staying.
Yeah, such a beautiful stories. And so love, let's talk a little bit about this love chapter. So
Yeah.
you met your now husband, and how was your journey as a woman living abroad with the love chapter? How did you maybe evolve over the time? And if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, of course. That's such a good question because I think in my case, to give you some context, like I've moved since the age of 5. So at 5 years old, my parents started moving around like in different countries. My mom would get jobs opportunities every 2 to 3 years, so we would move. Um and I'll say like especially I think in high school, especially like doing high school in Hong Kong. My parents stayed in Hong Kong back when I went to uni, but I would still go back to Hong Kong every like 3 to like I would say 3 to 4 a month, and I would spend the whole summer there. So I would be like half of the year in the UK, half of the year in Hong Kong, and I never felt like the UK was my home. I always felt like Hong Kong was my home, but I had to leave in the UK. So I never had that mindset of like I wanted to have a boyfriend. I'm not gonna say like I didn't want to. I wanted to, but it felt like all the people I met in my life like weren't like meant to be like in a long term relationship. It felt like, oh, I liked a guy that was in another country and then I had to go back. And, so I had that lifestyle where it wasn't really generating opportunities to have like long, serious relationships. So to be honest, before my husband, I didn't have a long term relationship. Like it was just short, sort of relationship with great people. Like there wasn't I met some great people, but it was just not the right time or the right moment. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm so happy that I got that freedom to do whatever. At the time I was like kind of heartbroken thinking, "Oh, I can never find like a long-term boyfriend or whatever." But now I'm happy that I did because I was free to like do whatever, and it gave me this independence that is still conveyed into my relationship and the partner I found. So my husband is really like, like in 6 months, I'm going to Chile with my best friend by myself. Like, we just got married, but he's like, I'm chill. Like he's doing his own thing. I'm doing my own thing. And we still have that like freedom to like be ourselves and travel, and we'd love to do it together. Sometimes we don't. And that's okay. So that sort of taught me to be independent and still have that in my partner and find a partner that's um also has his own thing going on and is happy to go on that journey with me as well traveling. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's so important, like what you say about, one of your obviously value is very being free and independent. So you also, by not being in a relationship earlier, kind of help you to build up yourself, maybe also professionally speaking, before to actually finally commit to the one that will accept you fully for your independence and
Yeah.
freedom. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
and how was working in different environments? Probably the difference between Hong Kong, Australia, like and I know we work together, so
Yeah.
How was, going into different environment as a employee, I would say. Um, how was your journey for that?
That's such a good question. I'll say, like, honestly, there is definitely some cultural norm in each country, whether your boss or your team is also international. Like, I will say, like, Hong Kong has this work hard, play hard kind of mentality where, people are expected to stay and work late, sometimes to work on the weekends, like, and then go out after and socialize with their colleagues in like nightclubs and bars and stuff. So there's very much that mentality. Whereas in Australia, I remember the first day I worked at this company in Australia, and I was still working at my desk because that's what Hong Kong expected. Like, if you dare leaving before 6, you're like, "What is she doing? Is she actually working?" And then I was still at my desk at 6, and I was waiting for my boss to leave, and she came up, she's like, "Are you okay? Like, are you do you have too much work? Like, what's going on?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Yeah, everyone leaves at 5 here. Like, you like, tell me if like, you have too much work." And I was like, "What?" And so, that those were cultural differences, like in Australia where people come earlier, they leave earlier, whereas Hong Kong is like a bit that concept of the face. Although the work being done is the same, I will say, like, productivity is the same, it's just a way to do it is different. So those were culture shocks, but I will say, like, what matters the most is, like, who's the management team in, because I ended up working for a lot of French people, and they have their own, French mindset, whether they live in Australia or in Hong Kong or whatever. So it's actually what's the mindset and what's the expectation of your management team that's almost more important than the country you live in. Most likely, if that person has lived in the country for a long time, they'll adopt the rules of that country. But if it's someone that, has a very international exposure and was not really attached to one place, they might bring their mentality and their culture into the country and not really care about what the norm of the country is. So it's really about also the people you work with and who's your manager, who's setting the value and the vision for the company, and if that fits with you or not.
Yeah, I think it's such a great insight for those who are probably willing to work abroad, but a bit like scared, or maybe I won't fit, or I want, like cultural shock. Because I remember before moving abroad, more than 10 years ago, people were always saying, yeah, if you work abroad, there is a cultural shock, there are all those things. So it's kind of scary. But then when you, as you mentioned, when you are in a company, in an international environment nowadays, like most of companies have people from abroad. I
Yeah.
don't even remember a company where it's 100% local people,
Yeah.
especially the company we probably work for. And then it's where it's actually, you say earlier, you never work in France, but at the end, you've been working a lot with French people.
Yes. Yes, that's
So,
the funny part is I've never, and that was actually challenging for me because I had never worked in France, and I worked with a lot of people from other cultures. And so actually working with French, like, people was challenging because even in the way that I express myself, I've learned all the business vocabulary in English. So there was a lot of French words I didn't know. Like, right now, if you ask me to write an email to, like, client in French, I will check with ChatGPT. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it is, and even expressing myself, like, I always found it harder in the workplace to express myself in French. So it's weird in a way, that I end up just working with French people, but I will say, like, people in my team were mostly international. So
yeah.
it's usually, yeah, the management or a few, yeah, people or the company being created by some French founders.
Yeah. I guess we always also attract who we are as well. So half
Yeah,
international, half French. So it's kind of,
exactly. So
it's
people a
part of
bit like me, basically. So I guess that's why it makes sense because
exactly.
we can relate.
And in the past, you had your own business, right? So
Yeah.
how has been this journey for you?
Yeah, so to be honest, like I feel like I've always been entrepreneurial since like a very, very young age. I've always had that personality. I'm super creative, so like I have that mind where, I think if you ask all my colleagues, like whether it's at a more corporate job or my first job that was more creative in communication and PR, they will tell you like Romy is creative. Like they'll tell you like she has a lot of ideas. That's like story of my life. Sometimes I can't sleep because I'm just thinking about things. So I've always had like a lot of ideas and tried different things which honestly, like I think even in the job I am today is reflected. Like I've always liked environments that give me the freedom to try different things, to be entrepreneurial, to work with startups. I love also working with other entrepreneurs and bounce ideas off of them. And sometimes you notice that even if people are in a completely different industry, sometimes the ideas come from like completely other industries. That's how the most original ideas are created. So I always feel like yeah, creating I had a small clothing business that then turned more of a social media presence, and I had like my own like podcast and stuff like that. But what I've learned from it is two things. I think first thing, and I experienced that myself, is that I saw a speaker said that it's this quote is not coming from me. I have to precise, but he said the best ideas are gone to waste in the planning phase. So a lot of people have that fear of getting started, and they're always planning, oh, I've got to do this first, or I've got to do this first, and they never end up doing it. I think entrepreneurship is about doing it, not being scared, failing. Like you're going to fail. Actually, it depends how you see it. You're going to learn. And then one day, if you keep going, because it's easy to get started, it's harder to keep going. One day, you're going to find by trying and trial and error, you're going to find one thing that works. And then if you're capable of identifying that thing and keeping capitalizing on that thing, that's how you're going to start seeing growth. But that comes from listening to your customers. So it comes from like trying many different things with the customer and seeing who buys into it,
Yeah.
because there's your customers are not like automatically your friends. Your friends are going to support you whatever you do. You've got to find people that don't know you and they're going to buy into your product, and you've got to identify why, and try to capitalize on that and keep doing and doing and doing and doing over. You've got to produce, and one day something will emerge, and that will be the right thing. And I
I
think
love,
people
yeah.
yeah, sorry. Go
No, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, I think people sometimes don't have the time, the patience, or the resilience to keep producing, so they stop. And then it never yeah,
Yeah,
gets
I
going.
love what you say about, keep going. Y- Planning is killing the ideas.
Mm.
And then once you found, and also something you mentioned very important is listening, analyzing what works and doesn't work. Because often for me, what I saw as a mistake of a lot of people is, okay, I'm doing, but they never take the time to pause, to assess, to review, to listen to actually client, to listen to the ecosystem around them that know better than themselves, basically. So it's by taking those time to kind of zoom out of their daily task that they can really find, okay, this is the one thing I can go and capitalize. I love what you mentioned for that is, yeah, and then now you found something that has an interest, like go deeper and get to there. And as you work a lot in startup and angel with entrepreneurs, what are the
Mhm.
main challenges you are encountering from their story nowadays?
Oh, I could talk about so many, but it's great because I've been through it, and I've like essentially like created some of my own business, and so I know how hard it is. I think one of the key challenges is sometimes they create a product that there's no audience for. So it's like they came up with this idea thinking it applies to me, so it's probably going to apply to everyone. And then they don't do the testing enough. And then it ends up like not working out, or people are not biting into their product. You should, especially in startup land, there's this conception of like fundraising, like you can't really do anything before you fundraise, which is completely wrong because actually you should be able to prove that your product has traction before you raise with it could be having people saying your product is great. It could be a way that you find to trial them. Like there could be so many different ways that you can prove that this will get traction. And so a lot of people are, I think, they're not producing enough. They're not like trying to change their product, trying to pivot to make it so that it's appealing to their customer. And I think that's the key thing. I think, you've got to be able to listen, as you said, and be able to keep going. And then there's the resilience part. I think people glamorize the role of a founder, of like having your own business, being a CEO, whatever. It's one of the hardest job that you can have. It's a lot of pressure. Socially, it's very hard because you have everyone looking at you. Like a lot of the time when you start, people are looking at you like, "Oh God, like, what is she or he are doing?" Like they're taking huge amount of risk, like how they're gonna make money. Like it's hard to get people to believe in you. So you have to be, and you're gonna have so many problems. I'm sorry to like be negative, but you're gonna encounter so many problems. It could be money problem, it could be people in your team, it could be clients. Like you're just gonna have so many problems. So it's about how you can fight these problems and learn from them to make you stronger. And a lot of people don't have that patience.
Mm.
So that's why I have such respect for people that have been doing entrepreneurship for years because I'm like, wow. I think it becomes an addiction almost because it has a thrill, but it's some of the people that they're like they work so hard. Like I don't think you like people that work in entrepreneurship can comprehend the life of an entrepreneur. It's like day and night. You don't stop. And so that's why you've got to do it because you like it. I think that's a lot of
Mm.
misconception, like people thinking, "Oh, I'll do it." I had a founder tell me one time like, "Oh, I'm doing this because I want to exit and have a great life." And I and I told him like most likely this is the wrong mindset because one day you're going to get tired to do that. I mean, some people are here for the business, but you've got to be into that. You've got to be able to do this for day and night. And most likely if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to have that resilience to keep going. So, when I started my business, it was never about the money. It was just really about what I loved, and I think that's what gave me the resilience to keep going no matter what.
Yes, you got the point. I would say it's the right way to, for me, like the real success I have seen in people, not just financial success, but really fulfillment in life, to really
Yeah.
happiness, to really, you know, uh, to have this courage, resilience, as you mentioned, is to love what you do. Because if
Mm.
not, to have this strong why you are doing this, because then okay, the small challenges come on the
Yes.
way, you will go over and overcome them. But if you are doing something just for the money, just because it could be a good plan to exit and then end up in an island to have a coconut forever, it's just not going to work. Like it's right, the mindset, like, and you mentioned it, you need the passions, you need the patience and passion, and you need to love what you are doing. And I think this is where a lot of people nowadays, they had it when they started, and then
Mm.
life happened, business, like the reality of the business, making profit and all of that happened. And then they are more focused on, making, keeping the business floating and running, than actually still connecting to their why, to their passion. And I
Yeah.
think this is a very Very strong point. So, do you have any tips with what you do today to help business owners, to help entrepreneurs, to help startup owners, because you are more working with startups? Um,
I think like one of the thing that people just don't talk enough in that space is like mental health. And
okay.
I think it's all linked to your mental, right? Because the problems you face is about what mentality you're going to have. Are you going to say I'm going to give up? Or you're going to say, okay, this is happening for a reason. I've got to learn why, I don't know, this client's not happy. And sometimes that can help you pivot your business to something that's going to work. So it's all about the mindset. It's being a founder and entrepreneur can be exhausting. Sometimes, you know, people compromise on their sleep, people compromise on what they eat, they don't work out anymore because they don't have as much time. You have to think of those things as this is part of my success. Because if you work as hard on your mental and your physical health, you'll get more success because you'll think more clearly, you'll be more productive. And so I think one key to success as well with entrepreneurs, and so many entrepreneurs tells me that they've learned the hard way, don't compromise on your mental health, because that your mental health is what will make the business what it is. Like the business needs your resilience. The people in your business needs to have you be clear of mind, you know? And I think that's one of the key thing that people underestimate. And I've done that many times too. Like I sometimes surrender, you're tired, you don't want to go to the gym, you want to eat a cheat meal, you're tired, you know. But and then maybe you want to keep working at night and you don't get the hours of sleep, and then you don't have the same mindset. So I'll think first, like, take care of your mental health. Second thing that we talked about earlier, ask for help.
Mhm.
Ask for help. Like, ask your family, ask your friends. Like, some people are so ashamed to ask around them. It always starts with the people you know. So you've got to ask your friends, you've got to ask your family, like, do you know that person? Could you help me do that? Could you, give me some advice? Like, you shouldn't be ashamed. This is how I found most of my jobs through my network. I've always asked around, like, and I think definitely ask for help. Things don't come alone, especially if you have a business. At some point you're going to have people working for you, like, you know um you've got to always, yeah, don't be scared to ask around. And it's better to try than regret and to not have tried, right?
Mhm.
The last thing I will say is, like, it's one of my favorite quote. I remember Will Smith was saying this. I don't know if he took it from somewhere else, but he went skydiving, and I'm still not ready to skydive, I will say so. But he did say something. He said, the greatest things in life come one step after fear. And that means that, when you're really scared maybe to start your business, or you're really scared to do a video online or start your channel and stuff because you're scared of the social pressure, you could actually miss out on one of the best thing in your life. So it's better to try, and not have regrets than not try. So, and I will say, the people that really love you, they'll be here and they'll support you anyway. So that's a good thing. Like, for the people that judge you, you can just kick them out of your life. It's a good cleanse anyways. So I'll definitely say, like, biggest tip, mental health, take risks, and ask for help.
Yeah, I think yes, 100% yes to that. And what I would say about the mental health, a lot of people put the business as first and forget themselves, and it's what happened. And then actually, you need to be the center of your business, because you are the center, and then you have the business, you have your family, you have your love relationship, you have your health, you have everything that feeds you. But if you just do business, on the long run, it doesn't work. How many people one day wake up is like it's either I take care of my health or I die, and then I do my like you if you want to have it all, you need to do all those things together. You need to feed yourself. And yes, mental health for entrepreneurs is still something not even not enough talk about, but it's
Yeah.
so important. How many entrepreneurs burn out? You know,
Yeah.
it's real, it's happening. And also
Yeah.
the I would say the loneliness, you know, when
Yeah.
you are in your sphere, you're really pressure, like you feel guilty about not being enough time with your family and all those things. You have the entrepreneur is really carrying a lot of things, so
Yeah.
really needs to put a mental health in as a priority. And yeah, thank you so much for all your tips, because I think it's it's a beautiful journey to be entrepreneur, but it's not for everyone. And I love the fact that, you know, for you have this strong entrepreneurship, but you use it in your corporate job. You know, you become creative, you bring your idea, you are a bit like an entrepreneur way in the corporation. And it's I love this aspect because it's kind of feeling who you are, and giving you also the security, but still, you know, contributing in the way that is serving the whole and all of that. And it's going to also show to people that there is not one way to do things. There is plenty ways, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and
So
I will add something is I I told my we were talking about with my husband the other day, like your strengths. You know how in job interviews you say your strengths and weaknesses? And I was telling him, I think I've identified like my biggest strength is also my weakness. So I told him, and that will get to the point of the advice as well, is I told him like I think my biggest strength is that I never take no for an answer. So I always try no matter what. And that's also my biggest weakness because I never take no for an answer. So sometimes it's good to to do that and to learn why the no is here. So, but that's also to say like I learned to be that way. So I was quite introverted when I was in middle school, and until I left for university in London, I was more, I had my friends and I love social circles and stuff, but I was always a bit shy and I was scared of like speaking in front of public and things like that. And it's really being surrounded by people like my best friend who was super outgoing that I learned how to be more outgoing and go up to people, and also by doing jobs that gave me that skill. So I would say like anything's possible. Like you can learn a skill. If you're shy, you can learn to like be better at like going up to people. Like there's mechanisms. There's if you challenge yourself, you can learn new skills. That said, you can't do everything. You can't be good at everything. So being able to delegate is a huge skill
mm,
that you should also have, because some business owners feel like they have to do everything by themselves. You can't. You're human. You have to, and that goes with the mental health. You have to be able to delegate, but anything can be learned. So it's about the time you put in it and if you're willing to challenge yourself as well.
yeah, it's so great, you know, to be able to do a identity shift, I would say, between you being super introvert before and now I see you on stages and you know, running speaking events for the startups and angel and all those things. So it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, is it true that you were introvert? And yes, it's really a path where you actually learn the skills, push a little bit yourself. You what Will Smith was saying, you know, like one step at a time, but then you do it. You know, the first time it's scary, and then the second time is okay, and then the 100 times later, it's normal skill now. It's something you do with so much uh, easiness and all of that. So yeah, thank you for, you know, telling people it's possible. And then in the other side, don't be the one willing to do everything all the time. Yes, maybe when you start, you don't have other choices, but at some stages, especially when you start scaling and if you want to actually really make this as a real business, you need to learn how to delegate. You need to keep your zone of expertise as yours, but the rest, what is not, what is actually taking your energy from you, you must delegate. You must surround yourself with people, because it's by being together that we love to create things. Do you want to talk a little bit about the teamwork, being working as a team?
Yeah. I always feel, because I think another big thing is, like, entrepreneurship can be very lonely because sometimes you start on your own. And I think it's really important for you to get out there, like, get support, maybe go and work in a co-working space where you can see other humans during the day. Like, that's so important. I love working in a team. I've been very lucky in my career to have great teammates that I've learned from, including you, that I've learned from, and I think, working in a team, there's some sort of beauty in it because everyone has different skills and it comes together. And it's very important. And I've learned that also, to listen to your teammates, like their perspective. I tend to be the kind of person, I'm quite an open book. Like, I share a lot. And that's just my personality. Like, I'm not, some people tell you should, like, be careful about how much you share and stuff. And they're probably right. But I'm quite an open book. And that's why I think I fit quite well in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because you have also that emotional connection with people. But it's very important to hear from your teammates and hear their perspective as well, because there might be stuff that you are missing in a situation that they're seeing. So I definitely love working in a team. I've worked with people with very different cultures and mindsets, and I'm a very outspoken person, so it has, you know, I've had to sometimes, take it back to let all other people speak, because definitely if no one speaks, I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna be the one speaking. So yeah, but I've learned a lot from my colleagues, and I've had a great experience, and I've worked with so many different cultures as well, that it's really opened your mind to different mindsets and different possibilities. And I think it would be wrong to say that you know everything and you have nothing to learn from your teammates, because no matter, actually, I even learned sometimes from the more junior teammates, like, and I always, my first boss in Hong Kong always gave a voice to anyone in the team, whether they were interns to senior people in the team. And I've always, wanted to do the same as well. I've learned from her a lot. I loved her. She was such a role model for me as well when I started my career. But I've learned from her a lot, as well as, like, everyone has an interesting thing to say, even if they have less experience. So it's a bit of a mistake sometimes from big corporation to not let more junior people participate to the conversation, because sometimes they have interesting takes.
I
Yeah.
do agree. Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree that everyone is bringing something on the table, no matter,
Yeah.
how many experience, how it's a perspective, is seeing the same problem or the same situation from different eyes, and it's so important to be this yeah, bringing more into corporation this open communication. And I think, it's good. We should open more. We should, you know
Yeah.
uh, be more vulnerable and speak out
Yeah.
loud what everyone is actually thinking. So I do believe this is at service of the actually of the management to do better in their
Yeah.
role, to really open the mic for people to express and find
Mhm.
solution together. Because I always notice that, especially in service companies, when I was working in those type of company, we are the one in contact with the client. We are the one on the floor. We are the
Mm.
one, knowing what is actually the real things happening. So if we are not able to bring back this to the leaderships, to the management, to actually improve the way of working, it's wrong. So it's really like
Yeah.
all those things is opening the mic into companies for people to speak, it's gonna be beneficial. And I really
Yeah.
wish, we really wish it's gonna be more and more. Um, so yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, so we spoke about, yeah, loneliness as an entrepreneur. How did you experience it abroad? I know your family was most of the time with you, your parents, but did you have those time where it's like, oh, I wish um I'm back, or I wish I'm there?
Yeah. I I think I've always had that mindset of like I always need to see people, so I would always like try to get out there and try to find ways to not be too lonely. To be honest, like one of the time cuz in the UK I think I had a flatmate and I made like the right friendship quickly. So I was lucky on that. I didn't really feel lonely in the UK. I think I did feel a bit lonely when I arrived in Sydney, which was like harder to make friends and but this is also about the mindset you have, right? If you like don't do anything to change things, if you don't try to get out there, like you're going to stay that way. And for me, like, you know, one of the most terrifying thing was to go on dating apps. I hated dating apps. I would like have never thought of it. And then my one of my friends told me like you're new to this country, like, you know, you might as well like try something new. Maybe you'll meet like some cool people and maybe you can meet like a partner, who knows. And I literally stayed 2 weeks on it because that was just not my vibe. But in the space of 2 weeks, I got to meet my husband, which was very high success rate. I feel like Bumble should be sponsoring this episode. But yeah, it was about like trying and seeing if it's like something new. And also I will say like when you're new to a country, it depends on the country because honestly, like if you're new to Hong Kong, you'll make friends so quickly. I can guarantee you that. Just go out. If you're into partying, you'll be fine. But I will say just in general, going into a country, there are things that you can do to be social. And I've learned that, like for instance, obviously through networking. Networking is one thing that I don't think people see also as an opportunity to socialize. Obviously, it's very like people will see it as like it's work and stuff, but I've made friends through going to startups events. You know, it's people that work in the same industry, so you relate, you go through the same things, you can find some great people there. And I wish I did that when I joined Australia. I didn't think of networking. That was one thing was like, what? Why would I do that? You know, I didn't start working just yet. So networking, going to networking events, there's so many. There are some that are pretty fun too, where there are like drinks and things like that. So networking is definitely one thing. Asking the people around you from your connections, like, do you know anyone living there? Like, I've had so many people introduce me to people they knew, even if they were like fourth connections. The other thing is work-wise, go and get coffee with people on LinkedIn. Like, people are always happy to I get all the time people that come to Australia for the first time and they're French and they're like, "Oh, you're French as well. I saw you in the network or part of the French deck or whatever. Can we grab coffee? I'd love to know more." I'm always happy to help someone out. So, reaching out on LinkedIn, reaching out on social media is always something you could do to make new friends. And then also picking up an activity you're really into, like a sports team. Like this is something I didn't think of. Like I know my husband found like a really big community doing jujitsu. Like that's something that can be so random, but he made so many friends through that. So there's so many different things you could do, but it's about you putting yourself out there and you can create any life you want in any cities at the end of the day. It's about how you do it for yourself, the work you put into it. It's not going to be easy. You're not just going to show up and things are going to happen. You've got to like put in the work and put yourself out there, but anything's possible.
I love all the advice and even the new perspective on networking and seeing that as an opportunity to socialize with people in your
Yeah.
industry. I think I really love that. And I, for all who are listening today that who were a bit scared about living abroad and starting fresh and being on your own. I think you get so much great tips that I wish I had at first. And
Yeah.
to also myself, figure those things out, and Roman did it on her own as well. And it's
Mhm.
how we build up new social connection in those countries. Whatever you're changing cities or countries is always the same. You need to uh, to notice it and then to do something about it, and then and then you connect and you create your new circle. I would
Yeah.
say the last question will be around finances, because as I
Ah,
love to date my finances.
yes.
Can you tell us about a bit about what is your relationship with money and finance today?
Ah, um, it's quite bad. I've never, like, thought, like, I don't have this money, I can't do that, which is bad in a way because 'cause I'm not amazing at saving. But because I have that mindset where, and that comes from, like, different experiences in my life where I always thought, "Oh, I need to enjoy now because I don't know what can happen tomorrow." And,
Mm,
I've always had that mindset of, like, okay, like, I wanna make sure I have enough money to be able to travel and things, and that is also my entrepreneurial personality where I'm like, there's ways to make money. Like, there's always ways, like, if you, with your business, with things you try, like, there's always ways that you can make some extra money and put it towards traveling and stuff. So, eh, money, I think, is not never the biggest limitation. I think if you really want it, there's ways that you can make money in your job or finding another job or, doing side hustles or, there's always ways. So I feel like if you're asking me about how I manage my finances, I got better at it. I never used to be that good at doing this. I would always live the high life on a very small salary, because I always had that entrepreneurial mindset of, like, I'll make it again. Like, money comes and goes, like,
mm,
I'll make it again. And I think that comes from my mentality that I mentioned to you earlier, which was like, my biggest strength is never taking no to an answer. Like, I always find a way to make things possible, but also it'd be good for me sometimes to save and maybe not go on that trip or not take the five-star hotel. Like, that'd be some good conscious choice for me. But because I have that mindset and I've always had and always found ways to make things happen, I'll say that, like, if you focus on the opportunity and if you really want something, you'll find the money somehow. Like, I promise.
I agree.
So money should not be your limitation. They will always be ways.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree that money comes and goes, so don't be attached to, I need to have X
Yeah.
amount on my bank account. No, no, it's flowing. It's just there's thousand millions of ways of creating money, and just being resourceful and trusting, trusting as well. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. Um, we are going to close the rapid with the rapid five is five question,
Yeah.
very quick answers. So are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
I hope I'll come up with the idea quick enough.
That's okay. So the first question is one thing you would love for your life.
Oh my god. This is gonna be hard. Wait, so one word? Do I have
No,
to say
no, like
one?
you can say a few words or a sentence.
Okay, one thing that I would love for my life right now. Um, Better sleep.
Yeah. You're
Yes.
probably not alone on that. One thing you would love for the world.
Be less judgmental
Mm,
and try to empathize with people and understand people instead of judging people on the first thing you hear.
yes,
Yeah.
yes to that. The worst advice you have received.
Um, hmm. You should do this because you'll be more stable that way.
Mm. Oh, it's strong, the shoot and stable.
Yes.
So, what is the best advice you have received?
From someone or from, just, like, what I heard or
Yeah, what you heard. Oh,
Mm, just do it.
I love that.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
This sounds so American. I'm like, "No, this is not it's not sponsored."
But I really love the just do it because for me it's also a motto that I knew when the best result I had in my life was when I just do it. And if I
Yeah.
start thinking about it too long, it's just the idea kind of fade. And the last question, if you had a magic wand, what would you transform?
Today?
Yes.
Like that if I had a magic wand, I would give myself the power to be able to, like, um, teleport myself anywhere in the world. That w that would be my magic wand that I could, in a day, go in the afternoon to Los Angeles and hang out with my best friend and come back to Sydney and watch a movie at night with my husband. That'd be my magic power.
I agree. So if anyone is doing a, a startup for teleportation, I'm in
Yeah,
as well.
hit me up. I'd be very interested.
Do you
Yeah.
want to add something before we close up today's episode?
Um, well, like, I think if you're someone listening and you're scared to, take that jump and maybe move somewhere else, or even not just move, start something new in your life and you're scared and you don't know and whatever, just do it because no matter what, you're going to learn from it. And the best, as I said earlier, like Will Smith said, the best things in life come one step after fear. So it's worth trying.
Yes. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Romane, for all your tips, your journey. Thank you for being here today and see you again.
See you, Lucy. Thanks.
Thank you.